I'm joined now by Arthur Dong. He's a professor of economics and strategy at Georgetown University's McDonough School of Business. We've been talking about this for weeks. What do you make of this latest move by President Trump, not backing down, actually pushing it even further, saying he's willing to go all the way?
Well, this is a very, very serious escalation of the trade war that has been initiated between these two countries. Now, President Trump not only doubling down, but tripling down by escalating the tariffs, threatening a potential $500 billion of total, which pretty much encompasses all of the exports from China to the United States.
And he's saying, hey, look, this is part of the bigger picture. I'm not doing this for politics. I don't care what the stock market does. But you think it's about the politics?
It's all about politics because we're about 3 months away from a major midterm election in the United States. And President Trump, however he may deny it, is fighting for his political life. And when he makes statements and makes statements against China, accusing China of being an unfair trade actor, well, this is music to the ears of his supporting base. When we look back at the analysis and sort of the empirical data of how President Trump won the last election, it's very clear that he won in the critical states in the Midwest, which were former industrial-heavy states that are very anti-global.
How long before we see some of the effects of this trade war?
The effects may not be immediate because the secondary, third-degree round, although it's been announced, it hasn't been fully implemented yet. What we will see is probably by Christmas time, we'll start to see, at least on the consumer side, an increase in the pricing of certain items that normally are being manufactured and exported in China.
And look, it's not just China. We're seeing the EU involved in this, Mexico, Canada. And just last week, we saw this major free trade agreement between the EU and Japan. So while this is all happening in the United States, is everyone else around the world trying to figure out what they can do with each other to stay afloat?
I think the leaders of most all the trade nation countries in the world today have their heads spinning. He just came back from a trip from Europe, from Brussels, and pretty much wanted to put a torch to the entire trade system with Europe. He certainly has talked about putting a torch to NAFTA, and now we see an escalation again with China.
This, again, not a surprise. This is something Donald Trump has talked about for months, even before he became president. So what do you think happens now? Where do you see this playing out? This is something, again, we've been talking about this for months and months. What's next?
I see the trade rhetoric being in place, certainly escalation of the trade rhetoric from now through November. I'm hopeful that after November, after the elections are over, that we might see a little more discussion with regard to either finding compromise and dialing this back. We also see within the leadership of his own party a high degree of concern amongst key Republican senators about the implications, both the secondary and tertiary, as well as the unintended consequences of an escalating trade war with not only China, but increasingly with the rest of the world.
And members of his own party have been speaking out. So I did want to ask you, can Congress, as they've been discussing, do something to prevent these tariffs from happening?
I think they do have a lot of say. The manner in which the Senate and key congressional leaders, the checks and balances that are a part of our political system, and certainly the politics, the political dynamic with regard to his own party. I certainly see those voices coming forward and finding a way to find a greater voice within this entire trade debate.
Yes or no before the midterms?
Not before the midterms, after the midterms.
All right, Professor Arthur Dong, always great to hear your take.
Thank you, Elaine.
Thank you.